Hello, I'm Bert Oliver, and welcome to Bowie News and Views. And we have, as usual, a special guest that John Rouse, our co-producer, will introduce. John?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to welcome one of Bowie's senior politicians, who is sitting on the city council when I actually had a few strands of hair in my head.
It's been that long.
Yeah, 16 years, right?
16 years.
16 years as city councilman at large.
Yes.
Were you always at large?
Yes. The first 4 terms, I'm in my 8th term, the first 4 terms was the old geographic representation where everyone ran at large.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And then, since we changed the format of how we elect our representative, I've been the at-large for the last 4 terms.
Good, good. How about giving us a little brief synopsis of your career?
Of my career, okay, I spent 6 years in the Navy, in Rickover's nuclear Navy.
Okay.
After that, I used the GI Bill to put myself through college, and I like to rib the mayor on that because he'll talk about how he's finally has paid off the last of his tuition payments for his 4 kids, and I point out that out of the 5 years I spent in college, my dad paid for the first semester.
I remember that.
The rest.
I was ex-Air Force. Boy, I love that.
And then I've been up here. I met my wife when I was in the Navy, and that's why I came to Maryland.
Oh, is she a war bride?
No, she's not a war bride. I met her when I was stationed, when Bainbridge, I was up there when Bainbridge was being shut down.
Oh, okay.
As a nuclear power school was the last.
That's in the northern Maryland.
Right, it's just on the other side of the Susquehanna River Bridge on 95 when you cross over. And I met her when I was in the Navy, although I got out of the Navy, spent 5 years in college. I kind of dated her for 4 years, off and on while I was in the Navy. Of course, the off part was I'm at sea in a submarine out in the middle of North Atlantic.
Yeah.
And then I got out, and when I was in college, I didn't have any correspondence communications with her for 5 years. And then I left grad school after a semester and moved up here, and a year later we got married. And just decided to stay up here because of her roots being up here.
Oh, are her roots here?
Her roots, well, yes, and her mom's from the Kingsville area, north of Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
Her dad's originally from Wisconsin. He was in the Navy. He retired as a corpsman. Chief Corpsman.
Oh, okay.
Kathy was actually born in Taiwan.
Oh, you're kidding, really?
Born in Taiwan, in Taipei, Taiwan.
I've been to Taiwan.
When her dad was stationed over there.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, my mother-in-law describes the birth. There was the middle of a monsoon, and there was a foot or 2 of water in the delivery room because of flooding.
Oh, jeez.
And a few years ago, Kathy, or somebody told her that if she were male and we went back to Taiwan, she would, by right, being born there, be entitled to an acre of land in Taiwan.
No kidding.
Supposedly that is true. So, but for the most part, she's from Elkton area. Kathy grew up in
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. That's how, that's right adjacent to Bainbridge, so that's where we met. And then how we ended up in Bowie is purely by accident. 100%. I'd taken a job with BG&E down at Calvert Cliffs. And she had a job with Choice Credit Card when, if you remember the savings and loan debacle.
Oh, sure, under the first Bush.
Right, and in the state, they had opened up banking. Prior to that, you could not have interstate banking. Mm-hmm. It was only local banking allowed, and part of that bailout was allowing the banks to come in. So Choice Credit Card was brought in as the first multi-state.
Yeah, I remember it.
I remember. She got a job with them, and the office was on the across the main street in off York Road up in Towson, by the administration building at Towson University. So that's 40 miles to the north. Calvert Cliffs is 43 miles to the south. So from the Point Ridge section of Bowie. So that's how we ended up in Bowie, literally by employment chance. So
I remember I was stationed at Fort Meade going to training, NSA training, and we all used to go down to the slot machines down in
Solomon's.
Yes. And drove through Bowie. I said, oh, let's take a look at this place. We drove in, probably the area that I now live in. And we looked at the houses. Who would live in one of these? It doesn't even have a cellar. Right. I was from New England. And guess what? Here I have been for the last almost 40 years.
It's a great place to live. I'm sorry.
Well, John's lucky, too. If anyone's ever met your wife, they know how lucky you are. And probably the woman he was traveling with, he was lucky there because if you met his wife. As we go from there.
Oh, by the way, she's a systems engineer.
My wife is?
Not mine.
Oh, his wife.
And all engineers are very assertive people.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's interesting, but you know, the one thing I have to remind John, in looking at homes in Bowie, and the reason it's so popular, you could get twice the square feet of home here, a livable space, as say Northwest Washington, even
Right.
back then. And I know when I moved from Dallas, we shopped. Oh, you got to be in Northwest Washington. No parking,
Right.
unless you went out to Bethesda. You had to park down the street even to get to your own house.
Right.
But then you come to Bowie, and if you see what you did see, and not me, driveways,
Yeah.
2 stories.
No sidewalk on my street.
And of course, you know, I've been around long enough too to know that I don't know too many people have the cars in Levitt, Bowie, in the garages.
Well, Bert was here when Governor Ogle was in
Maybe
office.
they rebuilt the garage. Who was your governor? Oh,
Governor
that's a
Ogle.
good name.
Yeah.
It had a lot to do with the museums and everything. Anyway, and he had a farm off Church Road. So the interesting thing, though, people got a lot of value, and a lot of the federal workers they were moved, transferred in, that discovered the same thing. I've got to hand it to Levitt for putting out a product that we kept leaving, kept coming back. Because if you lived in Dallas and there was no basements in our community, but they were all brick houses.
Yeah, well.
You know,
Right.
and big
Right.
footprint. But then you realize the value, you keep coming back to it. And over the years, it's done very well. Even doing this this change of the value of houses, you've noticed they've went up.
Right.
A lot of people took off.
It's okay with me. I only spent $40,000 on mine.
And that was a lot then, though.
That was a lot then.
That was a lot, yeah.
Listen, Dennis, as you know, it's always nice to chat about the attractions of Bowie and what have you. But the other day, I forget who we had on, and I asked him a question. I'd like to ask you the same question. You've had 16 years of experience on the council. You've lived here for a very long time. Where do you see Bowie in the next 10 to 15 years? What do you think is ahead for us?
You know, the interesting thing, my impression we moved here in '87, and while we have grown in size, clearly, because, you know, in Point Ridge, you had that big disconnect because you didn't have the Jenkinheims property, the development, you didn't have the
Right.
center and all.
Right.
So it was kind of a little cluster down the south, and you had some open space, if you will, in the middle. Then you had the Levitt section all. And that's all filled in. And there's been a lot of growth. There's been you know, we've experienced that kind of growth in commercial.
Do you know, in 1971, when I first moved here, I lived at Point Ridge.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Pacific Court.
Okay.
And I would go up to Mount Oak Road, no, Mitchellville Road, leave Bowie, get on a 197, go down a certain amount of distance, and be back in Bowie.
Yep. It's still that way. If you go out on the 301, you end up getting out. You come that way.
Part of it wasn't paved at that time.
It's an old gravel road. But, you know, I see we pretty much built out. So I think what we're going to be seeing is kind of a consolidation, if you will, or a coalescing of what we have and an improvement. You know, the one thing I see, some suggest that we don't need zoning and planning authority because we're built out. But what happens in the time you're talking about,
they're going to build up.
Years, you're going to start redeveloping certain areas.
They're already starting in the marketplace.
Right. So, you know, in that sense, I think at a minimum, planning authority is important because, you know, you can understand the argument that they present at the state and the county level about having a cooperative regional development. You know, where you're not pitting one community, one city, town against another one in order to get a Walmart or some other, you know, whether it be a business or office complex and what have you. You do need to have some agreement and cooperation, but I don't think it should be dictated from above, but rather be worked on between the members that are influenced, which suggests that those that are best to make the decisions of what we look like in 10 to 20 years, like you're saying, are us.
We don't have that.
And we haven't for over.
Well, I remember the battle was in full swing 37 years ago, and it hasn't changed.
I was going to say, the battle hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
We have skirmishes year in and year out over this issue.
Park and Planning seems to be adamantly opposed to us getting anything.
Well, the Park and Planning is, and the county is.
And the county,
last couple of years, you go down there, some of their arguments that against our doing this,